All right, and welcome to Confessions of an Improv GM, and this is the 8-minute story challenge given to me on the Fear the Boot forums. The song was Night Moves. The genre was post-apocalyptic. So what I do on the 8-minute story challenge is I listen to a song, usually twice, but let's be honest, we've all heard Night Moves. So I listen to it once again, lyrically look through it. And then from there, I basically put together what you would need to either begin a campaign or at least a 1 or 2 shot in the way that I have a tendency to prep my games. So in this case, it's Night Moves. We've all heard it, but I've heard it, but I realized I've never really listened to it. When I sat down and looked at the lyrics, it's kind of charming in this adolescent way where what it is dealing with is an adolescent understanding of kind of love and sex, where he's getting past this bump in his life with this woman, and it's like they don't care about each other, but then towards the very end, he discovers he does have feelings that apparently she does not share with him, and it's just really sort of a sweet, interesting look at the adolescent growing into sex. Now, while sex moves are something in, say, Apocalypse world, I don't want to center what would be a session with a bunch of players specifically around it. There's reasons why you sort of fade to black during those times. So here are the notes I made on a first listen. So first I just kind of go, I listen, what do I see, what ideas come through, and actually with this one, because I sort of knew the song itself because I've heard it a bunch. The lyrics were what I spent a little bit more time as opposed to sort of picturing something, which is normally what I do when I do this if it's a new song to me. So, as you'll see, there's a bit of like hunger, falling in love, the idea of the first love. There's sort of a juvenile way of looking at breasts at the very beginning, but it's about that sort of awkward adolescent phase. Sex for the first time, perhaps a little bit of exhibitionism. He talks about making front page drive-in news. So at this point, what I'm thinking of is what I don't want to do is have this centered specifically around sex, but we can have it centered around desire that is unequally shared. So there is some sort of a bridge between whatever point A and point B are that will involve the players, probably people, but one of them wants more than what they're getting. And because you've got that bit about making the front page drive-in news, what's happening is going to be a bit scandalous, or perhaps, if not necessarily scandalous, it's going to be a big deal to people not directly involved. Romeo and Juliet type situation, though I don't want to go specifically Romeo and Juliet. It does have a realistic look for it. They're not trying to see it what it's not for. Living by the sword, and we were getting our share. So, my first thought: this is not tonally a rough driving song that we may tend to think of when we think of post-apocalypse. So this is going to be something that's a bit quieter, a bit more under the table, which, to be honest, we need in our post-apocalyptic games a little more. So I want to have it something, living by the sword, we were getting our share, but I don't want it to be this big, huge thing that would turn into a Mad Max thing. So what if we have 2 characters? Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to bring up, and then I've used it for Apocalypse World. I've also using it currently for a Mutant Year Zero game. A huge list of names that were taken not just from all of the Apocalypse World playbooks, but some other places where I found, here's a bunch of kind of unusual, post-apocalyptic names. So the things don't sound like, you don't have Kevin hanging around the apocalypse. Instead, you've got these things that feel a little more alien to help us separate our own sense of self from how they see it here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat just a little bit. So ignore the first bit. These are people that are either alive or dead in my current game of Meet Near Zero. Yeah, more than 100. So let's go with... I do like Frankie. So the two people we have this between, why don't we go with Frankie and East Taro? Kind of like that. Because it's just a little bit off from what we usually consider a name. So this is between Frankie and East Taro. They're living by the sword. We were getting our shares. I kind of like the idea that this maybe has to do with both a relationship that is sort of out of not necessarily convenience, and they're smuggling, we'll say, guns, we'll say guns and medicine. So the two of them are working together. I want to go with the Don Henley thing where he's the one who's falling a little bit more in love with her. What I do want to stay away from is this psychotic, I will possess her no matter what. I want to stay away from some of those tropes that are overused. That's why I don't want her to be the one that's all heartbroken and sad over it. I like the idea, coming from the tone of the song, that she maybe understands he's getting in more than he should, and he's aware of it as well. He knows kind of what his place is, but it's becoming difficult. I like the idea that their relationship essentially started becoming physical when they were, we'll say, stuck in an electrical storm. That shortly after raiders were in the area, so they were forced to sort of keep the shelter that they'd been in, and they kind of like each other, and they were sort of bored there for a bit. So sometimes things happen, and this is where it became not just two people who would meet to help smuggle some stuff. It became a little something more than that. I want East Harrow is from where the players are. Frankie from another settlement somewhere nearby. I like the idea that she sort of moves between them, between the settlements, buying and selling what she needs to sort of keep her living. This also means East Harrow is probably aware he may not be the only person in her life, but when he's around, it's sort of better than nothing. So a couple things. Maybe starting to care too late, waiting on the thunder. We're sort of like waiting for this something deeper, things that meant more. Funny how the night moves, you just don't have as much to lose. And a lot of I remembers at the end. So what we want to do is take that idea of the thunder and not as much to lose, and essentially metaphor that. So the thunder, I think in this case, is going to be say a shipment got stolen by a group of raiders. Frankie and East Harrow were not captured by it. They had managed just to get away. They were safe, but this large shipment that they were bringing was taken. And that is now in the hands of, let's go back to our big old list of names, of Lafferty. So Lafferty is the head of the raiders who stole this shipment. And that shipment was supposed to be going to Exit. Exit is essentially, and I'm going to use Apocalypse World lingo here. If you're not playing Apocalypse World, you can switch it over. But we'll say the hard holder, essentially like the boss. Mutineer Zero would be a boss. He's the hard holder boss who had bought those. And we'll say that he actually fronted her alone to buy them because they've been working together long enough. She showed herself trustworthy. She maybe also has him a little bit around her finger. So fronted to her some money. In that case, it's hard to not feel like he was betrayed. So I also like the idea that you've got someone in Exit's organization who maybe has someone that they can... Novia, I just like that. Visage, no. I'll use both of those names. But he's got someone who... Novia... Maybe Visage was the guy that betrayed him to be a little too on the nose. So Novia is in Exit's power structure. And what he does is his friend Visage, who is been doing some smuggling, he would rather Visage be able to kind of swoop in and take up what Frankie and East Harrow have been doing. Frankie in particular. We'll say East Harrow is her contact. Who this players are. He's her contact there. He's essentially like a fixer there who goes in and gets the stuff for who needs it, but also brings in medicine, guns, other necessities. So it's not just weapons of war, but also things that you require simply to survive. So the stuff that she brings in, black market, but she's smuggling it and not just selling it. It means you got, well, we'll say this. The raiders themselves, Lafferty's raiders, one of the things they're trying to do is they are part of a larger settlement. And we'll call that settlement Dust. And they're trying to keep the other like towns or places kind of under their thumb when it comes to how they get things. They're sort of the troll under the bridge when it comes to necessities. There's not a whole lot you can do for the things that a specific place is able to make on their own. But if you have these smaller settlements starting to work together, the problem you have for someone like this is that they suddenly have a much stronger group working together. So if he keeps them separated, now at this point, we have a reason for Frankie to be actually smuggling. We'll say Visage actually works directly with Lafferty, and part of what Lafferty is trying to do is cut off the smugglers, have his own people come through, so we can intentionally jack up prices, give money that way, keep things weak, and also occasionally be able to have some pressure because he knows who is bringing sort of the black market and bring his people there, so it's not just random folk he's going after. He can kind of go after the correct people that he's looking for. So, with all of this is not a bad start. East Harrow, so what I like to do, so now I've basically got the situation sketched out. You'll notice the players have nothing to do with any of the stuff that's happening. That's actually on purpose, because what I like to do is there is a world happening without the players. When the players get involved, they throw things for a loop. That's what players like to do. And if you actually want to see some really good examples of how to write adventures like this, which for me was really weird because when I read this role-playing game, it essentially just put into words how I was already approaching GMing. But it's dogs in the vineyard. And with dogs in the vineyard, you got characters going from town to town, solving problems. So the whole thing is about creating what's happening in the town, What happens if the players don't arrive, and what people want from the players? So I've got my notes here. So the inciting incident. I want Frankie to be the stranger to the players in this case because it gives us a chance for East Harrow to maybe hint that there's more between him and Frankie than there actually is. So the players, as they meet Frankie, might get a different idea. If they like East Harrow, they might feel like she's playing him a little bit when she feels bad about this. So the inciting incident, we'll say Frankie's been arrested by Exit. What Exit's trying to do is figure out where these things are. Because they've had a bit of a relationship, he's not wanting to go like torture her out or those kind of things. He's holding her for right now, trying to decide what to do because he, I think, kind of like East Harrow. Maybe Frankie's that kind of person who it's hard not to fall for if you get into like a physical relationship, and she knows she's sort of moving around enough that keeping something steady is difficult. Plus, she has mixed her business a bit with this. I mean, it's the people that she works most closely with. She's probably on her own a lot. And because what happened between her and Frankie happened while they got stuck, I think this is those things that sort of happens after a time when she's with some people. And I think maybe Exit is maybe one of only a few of her sort of contacts she's actually been with. I don't want her to be just basically going from town to town using her sex to do the stuff that she wants. We'll say she's got involved with these two. Or actually, wait a minute. She doesn't actually have to be. She's just been a trusted. She's brought stuff in. Frankie's never had a physical relationship with Exit, but they've had a long-standing, mutually beneficial smuggler boss relationship. So, in moving those in, because he has trusted her, and she's been able to come through so many times, weapons, medicine, and all the rest of these things. Maybe Exit's playing it this way. Exit's grabbed her, and in some respects is waiting to see if Lafferty is somehow behind this. Is she working? Is she working for Lafferty? And he doesn't know, and she's doesn't know if that idea might protect her or not. She's not, but she's terrified of being sent to Lafferty. She's also terrified of what might happen if Frankie thinks that she doesn't have someone behind her because she's a lone agent. She doesn't. So East Harrow doesn't really have the skill set. He's come to the players about this. So inciting incident is essentially East Harrow coming in. He's been shot through the leg, beaten a bit when they escaped, and right now pretty much in a bad way. This is someone who is freaking out. Things have gone wrong. He's worried that the woman that he loves, who he knows is not a thing, but she's been captured and taken by Exit. Okay, other tropes I kind of want to avoid. The damsel in distress. I think by the time they get there, I think we got damsel in distress. Frankie and Exit have spoken. Frankie's aware, or Exit's aware sort of what happened, and Frankie has an opportunity to make this okay. So by the time they get there, so basically East Harrow is going to sort of pitch like, this is what's happening. Like, I will do anything. I need your help to take care of this. The amount of money and equipment that can come out of this, because if Frankie has been captured, she will reward whoever helped. So there is a stake. Wants the players to help. There's a stake in it for them because Frankie can get all kinds of things. and someone like a smuggler that they can get stuff from at cost or less. That's a big deal in a post-apocalyptic society where generally a lack of resources is a big problem. They won't get stuff immediately. They can't call it up like, oh, I need a explosive for this thing happening tonight. That ain't going to work. But for other things, this actually could work pretty well. So the players have got a reason. If this is Apocalypse World, maybe ask them, East Harrow has been a friend of yours for a while. Like, how far back do you go? You can ask those questions to link the players to the character. If this is a one-shot, all you really need to do is, do the same thing. Ask them, how is East Harrow important to you? Or just say, you've been friends for a long time. Frankie has helped before. They may know Frankie from bringing stuff in and out. Sort of depends on what the players' jobs are. But East Harrow he knows a little bit about the ins and outs. He kind of wants a backup in case things go wrong. By the time the players get to exit, Frankie's talked her way out and is essentially spinning her plates, trying to see who she can grab for a retrieval mission. So the bandits themselves are not. It's not unsure if they're related. The bandits themselves are sent specifically by Lafferty and trying to basically make it seem that they're not a part of him. The thing is, these are not particularly well-disciplined people. Run-the-player characters shouldn't be terribly hard to find out that these are from Lafferty. So what that's going to put them in a position is, once they've discovered that this group is working for Lafferty, which shouldn't take terribly long. Basically, they track them down. Most of the equipment is gone. Lafferty himself wants Frankie kind of taken out of the equation. He would prefer if he can kind of keep raiding her so that essentially resources are being spent to weaken these other holdings, and then he wants to be able to go in essentially with maybe some of those weapons or other things to show them that he knew what they were going to do. So Lafferty's goal is to subjugate and keep all of these weak and dependent on him. Exit's goal. I kind of like the idea that Exit's goal is not specifically to go against Lafferty. He's not in a position where he thinks he can make a move. They haven't really gathered up the other settlements to see about possibly like a revolt. I think that Exit's goal is, we'll say, mix of famine and disease has hit Exit settlements pretty hard. And there was medicine and food, as well as some weapons that were supposed to be brought. Weapons were maybe to help hunt, bring some other stuff to help bring that in. Frankie wants basically to get her reputation back. East Harrow, what he wants is Frankie's safe. And we'll say he realizes she won't love him, but he doesn't quite have what it takes to call this off. The physical relationship would probably be better if he called it off, but he's not able to let go in that respect. So he wants Frankie safe to kind of go back in business. So the big thing here, I mean, it could just be go out, pick something up, and the repercussions are going to be in the future. It could be that it leads them into conflict with Lafferty. Hell, maybe the characters decide they want to work with Lafferty. Unlikely. Probably a better chance maybe with Exit or some of the other ones. But what I want to use this for is if it's the start of a campaign, you're bringing players into a situation that is already sort of fraught with possibilities. You have a number of settlements that are underneath the fist of Lafferty. You have Lafferty actively trying to keep them down, and we'll be using some blackmail and some other things to keep them down, and it's going to be difficult for someone to keep from saying something in particular, because this goes back to the prep. Novia and Visage will know who the players are. What they want to do get it better with Lafferty, who they think will be the true sort of power. If the players go there to help gain this stuff back, that information will probably get back to Lafferty, which will put the players on Lafferty's list. I think Lafferty, I like the idea that Lafferty is smart. He realizes people who will get things done will do better working for him. And he can actually keep pretty well off because they've managed to, he's got a bunch of bastards with him, and they have managed to subjugate all of these others. So if he finds out about the players, wants to meet them, maybe offer them a place. So we hold up that thing where Lafferty is not just, I'm going to kill the players because of this. It's like, no, they went out, maybe they got the stuff back for Exit. Exit will have to be punished, possibly, or the threat of punishment for smuggling these things in. Players just did something for a friend. They didn't know what was happening. So in this case, offers them a place, and essentially if they will join with him, cool. He's got people alongside of him who have shown themselves to be resourceful, shown themselves to be capable. If not, there needs to be an example. And the nice thing about it, if they are made an example of, and so is Frankie and maybe East Tarot. So if those examples are made, it's reminding the people at the top that when Lafferty calls, you fucking listen. That he takes what he wants, and if anything is stolen from one, you shouldn't use a smuggler. You should come to him for the little he's going to dole out. So this, in and of itself, gives you either like a single session. They go out, they find the people, and maybe they find out that Lafferty is behind it. And at that point, there can be a confrontation with Lafferty. You can try to do like an end cap scene. They find out it's there. Lafferty is maybe back with Exit. We'll say if it's one session, Lafferty is back with Exit. When the players return from talking with the bandits, final confrontation can happen there. One session's done. If multiple sessions, consequences can wait. Not going to wait. Lafferty can kind of bring them into the situation. And it's in a position where you then lay it in the player's laps. What do they want to do? Maybe they want to go with Lafferty. I mean, granted, most player groups aren't. But if they do, it could be really interesting. What if they are working for the kind of lord of this area? Maybe they want to change some things that way. If they are playing a little more heroically, like a lot of players do, name this, then they're put in a situation where you can start tying them in with some of the other towns, finding out what's going on, seeing how Lafferty is affecting this area, and then they can decide what it is they want to do about it. You're putting them in a situation where the players don't feel trapped in it. They need to make their decision might be go, screw this, we're going to go way the hell away. Cool. And they go way the hell away. But you've given them a spider web where they can kind of like pluck at the strings that they like. So what I'm going to do with these, I'm not going to be editing this episode, as by this point would be clear, but I'm going to put in the show notes a link to this file. It's not made all nice and awesome, but it's got the information that you might need. So I will go ahead and put this session notes up at the very top. And then down here, so this will be brainstorming, and I already have first listen notes there. All right, hoping this is something that you can find useful, or at least this sort of a method of putting them together. Please feel free to either on the 8-minute story challenge video or this one, if you give me a song and a genre of RPG, I will then go through and do this for you, get you a document and some information together on how to create a story just out of these. Have a great evening.